A few months after I appeared in Road, I was asked to audition for the role of a Southern woman for another one-act play at a theatre in Hollywood. The play was called Death Cell. Ironically, the tables were turned, and I was now in the position of acting with an American accent. I was sure the director knew I was English, so I didn't think I stood a chance against the American actresses. However, I was amazed when he offered me the role. It was an interesting play, set in, yes, you guessed it, a death cell. And the woman and her grown son are saying goodbye to one another. From their conversation, we assumed the son has committed a murder and that he's on death row, but that's not the case. In a twist, it's actually the mother who's facing death. I enjoyed playing the role, and although I had my doubts about the authenticity of my accent, I was pleased when two actors who were appearing in another play at the theatre thought I was American. I continued to spend several days a week with the children at Hollygrove, helping them write and produce their own plays, as well as being involved in all kinds of other creative projects. It was very fulfilling and rewarding, while at times frustrating, especially having to adhere to the rules and regulations of the organisation. A wonderful Canadian woman, Ellen, was a volunteer at Hollygrove who'd established an after-school program in the library every Thursday from 3 to 4 p.m. She called it Book Bugs and had created colourful charts on the wall with a child's name. When the child had completed reading a book, a funny stick-on bug was added to the chart with the title of the book the child had read. When 6 bugs had been collected, the child reached into a grab bag and picked out a small, inexpensive gift, usually bought from the dollar store. It was great incentive for the children, and Book Bugs was very popular with all ages, from 5 years old to 14. I was one of several volunteers who read to the children and encouraged them to read. It was a lot of fun for all of us, especially the older boys who liked to read ghost stories and scare us. Often at the end of the session, the children were reluctant to leave this warm, cosy room with its big armchairs and comfy couches, because it was clear that they enjoyed the one-on-one attention they were getting from each volunteer. And, of course, the grab bag. As time went on, Hollygrove was relying on more funding from government agencies to deal with the mental health issues of these abused and neglected children. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, being one of the major problems. So extra specialists were hired and more formal structures were put in place to keep the children controlled. One of these included the use of medication, and in particular the drug Ritalin. You may recall that after Nathan had gone to live with his mother in Las Vegas, I became special friend to Cody, who I saw every weekend. Although he wasn't as outgoing as Nathan, he had a cute personality and was very inquisitive. When I picked him up from Hollygrove one Saturday, though, he was completely out of it. He seemed stoned. He had absolutely no energy and could hardly put 2 words together. It was a difficult visit because this 9-year-old boy had no interest in doing anything except sleep. Although I wasn't aware that he was being given Ritalin or any other medication, from his unusual behaviour that day it did occur to me that he'd probably been over-medicated. When I took Cody back to Hollygrove, I decided to have a word with his cottage counsellor, but he wasn't around. I made it my business to speak to his social worker first thing on Monday morning, though, and complained bitterly at the major change in the child's personality, and I told her that I suspected he'd been over-medicated. The social worker was concerned too and said she'd look into it. Certainly a mistake had been made, but I never found out who was responsible. Thankfully, Cody was never in that catatonic state again. I know how difficult it was for each supervisor and counsellor of the 8 different cottages to deal with the 8 dysfunctional children of similar ages they were responsible for, and I always marvelled at the great job they did under extreme pressure. As was to be expected, there was often a big turnover of staff, but considering these workers were hands-on with these emotionally disturbed children for sometimes 10 hours at a time, it was amazing that any of them stayed. But most of them did hang in there because they truly did care for the children. The irony was that the majority of them were only being paid minimum wage, whilst the people in charge of Hollygrove, who were hidden away in offices, were being paid 6-figure salaries. Yet they rarely had any contact with the children at Hollygrove. It was ridiculous. Soon the hammer of authority came crashing down on the warm and fuzzy book bugs program in the library. We were told that this could no longer exist. It was now to be called bibliotherapy, and the children could not be rewarded for reading. They were to choose only one book at a time and then write an essay or make a creative project based on the qualities in the story, such as friendship, courtesy, goodwill, kindness, qualities that were posted around the walls of Hollygrove. Each child would have to commit to spending 4 weeks on the project, and then the volunteers were meant to write up a report on the child's progress. Now, after school, instead of running into the library so that they could relax in a non-threatening and warm environment, they were having to study a book and create a project. Consequently, as much as the kids wanted to see the volunteers, they weren't interested in doing more schoolwork. Neither were the volunteers. So Ellen and the rest of the volunteers gradually dropped away. When the new media centre was built a few months later, replacing the library, I was asked if I wanted to be involved. I said yes, of course. But that also came with huge challenges, which I'll describe in my next episode. In the meantime, since I still wasn't working, I decided to take a 6-week film directing course with Jim Pasternak, who taught at Los Angeles Film School. There were 10 of us in the class, including actress Diane Carroll's daughter, Suzanne Kay, and actress Polly Draper, who'd starred in the successful TV series 30-something. So some of us had worked with directors and had a rough idea of what we were doing, but others were complete novices. But we all got along well as we learned more about directing, operating the camera, lighting, and recording sound. This led to each of us directing a scene of our own, which had to be original. I chose something from my screenplay, Back to the World, about my experiences working for the US Army in Stuttgart. Because I was given the use of a beautiful house in Pacific Palisades with a winding staircase, I knew exactly the scene to shoot, but I needed to adapt it so that I had a beginning, middle, and end. I chose 2 actors and then put my crew together, camera, lighting, and sound. I designed the set, which was actually going to take place in 3 locations, the bathroom, bedroom, and the winding stairs. I wanted to make good use of the space. My character Maggie is in the bathroom putting a dye on her hair, while her boyfriend Sonny is in the bedroom. The characters are having a back and forth conversation about the dysfunction of the hospital, and Sonny is depressed and getting Vietnam flashbacks. Maggie goes through to the bedroom with a towel over her wet hair. She sees Sonny burning the back of his hand with a cigarette. He can't feel it. He has major PTSD. Maggie reacts, and this dialogue while she tries comforting him. She returns to the bathroom to quickly rinse the dye off her hair, and camera follows Sonny, who writes, "I love you" in lipstick on a mirror, leaves and walks down the winding stairs, stopping to look back once. Maggie sees the message on the mirror, goes to the top of the stairs, and calls Sonny's name. A gunshot is heard, Maggie screams. End of scene. Next time, that Andre Agassi story. Thanks for listening.